Welcome to the Gym and Tonic Podcast. I'm your host, Shanae Kunsa from SK Bodyworks, and this is a space where self-development meets holistic health. This podcast will help you create transformation from the inside out, blending all things mindset, healing, habits, energetics, spirituality, health, fitness, and nutrition. And through these episodes, I'm going to help you activate your highest self and create a life that feels as good as it looks, mixed in with some laughs, a few F-bombs, and a whole lot of truths that your soul has been craving to help you evolve, expand, and align with your highest potential. So let's dive in and step into your next evolution. Hello and welcome to the Gym and Tonic Podcast. Today's episode is one that is incredibly close to my heart and one that I've been so excited for. We're going to be diving into all things intuition, soul alignment, and how we can begin to decode the signs that the universe is sending us every single day. And I couldn't think of a more magical guest to explore this topic than the beautiful Caroline Feda. Welcome to the podcast, Caroline.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and chatting with you about everything psychic mediumship and spiritual questions. I'm just so excited to dig into everything.
I'm so excited. And for those that are listening, Caroline is a gifted psychic medium, healer, and coach. And Caroline has actually guided myself through some of my, transformative moments over my own journey on the last 9 months or so. Really from, receiving guidance in my business, channeling my spirit guides, to even like supporting big decisions in my business, like investing in my life coaching diploma, and even connecting with my dog Diesel, who we lost earlier this year. And the sessions we've had together, which I'm sure we'll obviously touch on today, have truly been both, healing and activating at the same time. So I know that today's conversation is going to be the same for you as well. So in this episode, we're going to be unpacking Caroline's story of how she discovered her psychic gifts, how to strengthen your own intuition, and how to work with, the signs from the universe, and really what it means to live a life in alignment with your soul. So whether you are new to the world of intuition or maybe you're already deep in your spiritual journey, I have a feeling that this episode is going to leave you feeling deeply seen, expanded, and connected. So let's dive right in. So let's start by, Caroline, can you share like your journey of, what has led you like to this moment right now? Like, how did you discover your gifts as a psychic medium and healer?
Yeah, wow. It feels like it's been such a long road, but this was definitely not the plan. I was never someone who, I was never a kid who like saw ghosts or auras. I didn't have any like special, like quote unquote things that I did or that I was doing. I was a pretty like, again, quote unquote normal kid from this area of the United States, like the tri-state area. And I just, my family wasn't particularly religious or spiritual, and none of this stuff was like ever introduced to me. Like no one was talking about spirit guides or angels or any of that stuff. And so I, grew up, went to college, and it was my dream in college to work in the music industry in Los Angeles. And so that was what I was like completely focused on, probably for like the majority of my early 20s. And I am kind of like a crazy job manifester. Like I don't really know how I do it, but I manifested all of these like dream jobs at some like incredible companies in the music and entertainment business in LA. And I had finally like made it, I guess you could say, like in my eyes, within that career path. And I just realized how unhappy and how unfulfilled I was. Like I had kind of made it to the place that I had always said, like, once I'm here, I'll be happy. Once I'm here, things will feel better. Once I'm here, I'll feel healthier. And the opposite was happening. Like once I got there, a lot of things in my life started to like fall into disarray. I started to kind of see beyond this like glamorous illusion of the world I was working in. I had some really challenging and complex like work experiences with bosses and people and the environments I was working in with just like the late nights and drugs and all sorts of things. And it was kind of like, whoa, like everything I thought I wanted, I actually don't know if I want to live this life anymore. And I started to feel really depressed, really anxious. I started to kind of deal with some big mental health things that I had always kind of had underneath the surface, I would say, like throughout my life, but they were definitely like exacerbated to a level that I had never experienced before, like anxiety to the point of panic attacks, like really falling into like deep depression and getting really sick. I also was experiencing a lot of odd like health crises around that time that were kind of like unexplainable for being like a relatively healthy like 24-year-old at the time. And during COVID, everything shut down, obviously, and working in live events in the music industry, like my job got pretty quiet. And so I had been listening to some spiritual podcasts, just like kind of dabbling in the world of like personal growth and self-development. And there was this one podcast with this one psychic, who she was talking about like her gifts and how she came into this work and how she offered like a training for it. And up until that point, I had never even seen a psychic, but for some reason, I listened to this podcast episode like 4 or 5 times. I just like couldn't
Wow.
get enough of like hearing her talk, and something about it like so deeply resonated with me. And so it was strange. Like it was a strange series of non-coincidental events. But soon after that podcast episode, there was someone like popular influencer who I was following who literally like posted the phone number of her psychic. It was like very strange on Instagram. And I was like, okay, well, let me go and get a psychic reading. And I went to that psychic, and it was in that reading that that psychic told me, like, you can do this work too. Like, you're actually meant to do this. And I was definitely like, what? What do you mean? Like, I
What are
thought
you
she was
talking
gonna,
about?
yeah, I thought she was gonna, tell me about like this other career, like this other life. And she was like, this is something like you can step into. It's something that you should step into. And kind of like if you don't, like it will come for you, like it will find you and you'll have to do it. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And it wasn't like that right then and there. I was like, okay, let me like explore this. I was still skeptical. Like there was no way I could sit in front of another person and see or hear or feel anything that wasn't in the physical. Like that's crazy. But I kind of just like went deeper and deeper and deeper into like a spiritual awakening. I was doing all the things, reading the books, the podcasts, like getting really into my astrology, my human design. And I just started to notice this pattern in all of the stuff, all of that human typing stuff that I was reading about how like my unique makeup was to be extremely psychic and to be extremely intuitive. And, I believe we all
Wow.
are. Like, this isn't anything unique to me, but I think that some people are meant to be career readers and intuitive guides. And it was strange. Yeah, like everything had this language of me doing this. And, for reference, I am a double cancer, which was like a big giveaway for sure. But there were so
Wow.
many little things in my human design and my gene keys and all of this stuff. And I was like, okay, let me just try this class. I had never invested that amount of money like ever in anything. Like I was pretty broke at the time. And so I was like, this will just be really stupid or it will just be a fun hobby. Like again, I was not like trying to make a career or anything out of this. And I did the class and I started practicing with other people in the class, and I was really like getting stuff. Like people who had been in it for much longer were like, wow, like, you're really like, how long have you been doing this? And I was like, this is like my third or fourth practice reading. Like, and it was an interesting feeling because I had never really been I've always described myself as like a jack of all trades. Like I'm good at everything but great at nothing. And for the first time in my life, I found something that I felt like I was truly great at least like from the jump. Like it just came so natural. The way I was doing it felt really easy. And not to say I'm like the greatest psychic of all time, but I was like, wow, like I definitely have like a knack and an affinity for this. And I basically, since 2020, I took it deeper and deeper, working with different mentors, reading different books, giving hundreds of readings. I was reading people for like a whole year for free, just like on these hour-long Zooms, like hundreds of people trying to find people however I could just to read from, just to honestly like keep proving to myself and develop my gifts. So, yeah, it was a pretty interesting journey, and I'm still shocked by it all of the time. I feel like people in my life are still surprised by it all of the time. But I am really, really grateful for the fact that I followed my intuition before I even had the words to say that statement. I just was following my curiosity, and I continued to, pick up those breadcrumbs and those clues. And, it definitely hasn't been an overnight thing. Like it has been from the first day I started that program to now, it's been like 5, 6 years, and I feel like I'm just getting started. There's so much to learn, but it's been a really interesting journey for sure.
Wow, what a journey. And like the fact that you like, went to your own psychic reading and I feel like the universe was like really nudging you there and like you were like, okay, well, I didn't expect to hear this. Like I wanted to come and, get questions on my career and,
Hmm.
learn about what's in store for me sort of thing. But I feel like it's like what's meant for us will always find us. And I mean, you were absolutely meant for this work because you're incredible at what you do. But yeah, what a journey. And even just the career in the, film, was it music industry? Was it?
Yes, in the
Yeah.
music industry. I was doing like live events, like music festivals, like was primarily where I was like working all the time. So it was a lot
Yeah.
of like late nights and traveling and just being in these like festival environments. It was a very unconventional situation, which I loved in the beginning, and then it got extremely dark, extremely fast. And I don't think that's the experience for everybody. I think it was like a divine experience that I had. Certain players and people and situations came my way to really like it had to be so drastic for me to walk away from that
Mm,
dream, because that was my dream for so long, and the universe really had to like put some pretty crazy things in my path for me to actually say like, wait a minute, I don't know if this is for me. And I can say that now, but there was a very long period where I was extremely lost, and I mourned that identity, even though like my gifts were coming online and that was super exciting. And I was like, maybe I'll start this side business. There was a long period of time where I was so disconnected from everything I had thought I wanted. And so that was a really interesting chapter. But I think in order to step into like this new identity, you do have to let go of an old one. And so I'm really glad I learned that lesson very early on in my 20s.
yeah, definitely. It's almost like that death and rebirth cycle. And it definitely
Hmm.
sounds like you said, like sort of like divine intervention of like, realizing that and also having that as such a goal of like, this is what I want. When I get this is going to be like amazing. And then like, getting there and, I can imagine how unsettling that would have felt of like I thought this is what I wanted, but like, like I can just imagine how challenging that would have been for you as well. But amazing, like, years and years later, you're here doing something that you're so passionate about and sharing your story. Um, and so, what did it feel like when you, I guess, first started or when you started connecting with spirit and realizing that, like, okay, like, this is my path? What was that like?
Mm. Yeah, it was definitely it took a lot of work. Like it took a level of discipline that I had honestly never had previously. I was never like someone who meditated or did any of this stuff. But for some reason, I all of a sudden was like drawn. I just knew innately I needed to meditate every single day. I needed to start like having some sort of morning practice where I like sat and I played and I opened the door for these gifts to come in, because that's the thing. Like we're not everybody is like open to the stuff coming in, and you have to intentionally like open the door. So my experience was definitely one of like really deep intention. Like I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to start getting downloads from my spirit guides. I wanted to feel archangels around me. I wanted to connect with my soul. And obviously, all of this language I learned through classes and books and stuff like that. And I would just do all sorts of things. I would do like a meditation from over here and a free writing from over here. I was just like in this experimentation phase, but I was pretty disciplined in the fact that I made space for it every day. And I think at first, it was definitely like, I don't know, like, is that real? Am I seeing anything? Am I getting anything? But then when you kind of push through and you almost show your commitment to your team on the other side, like the universe and all of that, then you kind of start to get these like big rewards. And that's kind of how they hook you in. You get the like the prize, right? Like you'll see something in a meditation finally, or you'll hear like a whisper, or something will finally happen, and you're like, whoa, okay, like that is real. And then it makes you come back and go even deeper. So it
Mm,
was definitely interesting. My first like intuitive sense to kind of turn on was my clairaudience, which is clear hearing. And so I felt like, and like most people, you kind of think of psychics, like everybody's just seeing things. And
mm,
that's really not the case. Like there's so many different types of intuition, and like they're called the clair senses. And mine was clear hearing, which is a pretty challenging one to have because it's not like it's this external voice. It's like your voice kind of, but it feels like
yeah,
it's coming from outside of you. The words are different, the intonation is different, and it's different from like a knowing in your gut. Like it's just like something that drops in and you're like, "Oh, I innately know this." It's a more of like a it's something that's
subtle.
heard. Yeah, and so that was a very interesting place for me to start. And then over time, I've developed tapped into my clairvoyance. And so you can really strengthen anything with intention. We all have a gift that is naturally the strongest, though. And so I always, will direct my clients if they're wanting to get into this or have their own intuitive connection to find what theirs is and really work with that and play with that. And then work on and practice that like secondary one that they want to develop.
Yeah, and I can imagine like when, you first sort of started diving into that work, it would have been like, oh my God, like, am I crazy? Is this happening? Like, and just building that trust muscle, obviously, with the intuition and things like that as well. And like, how has your own intuition shaped like your life and decisions, and even I guess maybe like your relationship with trust and alignment?
Yeah, my relationship with my intuition has definitely changed a ton. I think I said earlier, like the word intuition, like, you hear it, but no one really is talking about it. I think there's a lot of stuff out there about trusting your gut, about self-trust, and I really didn't have any of that. Um, I don't think, like, I think from my perspective, but as I'm saying that, I'm realizing I was like, well, I actually I did. Like, I've always been very, like, I know what I want and I'm gonna get it. Even though I'm not the loudest person in the room, I'm pretty introverted and quiet, quite honestly. But I always have this, like, I don't know, I always felt drawn to things and I relentlessly pursued them. And so I feel like I always did that, but I didn't have the language for that. And I also think too, with time and with age, though, that like relentless pursuit of the things that you're curious about and the things you want to do, that becomes watered down by like outside opinions, noise, keeping up with friends, society. And so it's funny, like I would say, from like a young age up until going to college, I was like pretty like marching to the beat of my own drum, following my intuition, kind of doing what I wanted to do, making things happen for myself. And then as I got older and college and jobs and life and pressure all started to kind of come into play, I definitely lost myself a lot in my early 20s. And I think that's how I ended up in the music career that I ended up in, because I was just doing something that was going to look really cool on paper, that was going to make me, I don't like a cooler person because I had access and was dealing with celebrities and being at all these like exclusive situations.
Mm.
And I definitely think I wasn't listening to myself at that time. And that's also why I was having such intense feelings of anxiety, depression, health issues, because everything and anything was just trying to get my attention. And coming back to this work and connecting with guides and angels and spirit guides and all of that stuff, which is fun. Like, that's all good and cool. But I would say, like, the biggest thing that has been the most beneficial for my personal growth is my connection to my soul, because that is really the source of our intuition. And the
Mm.
moment I got really clear on who and what my soul is, what she likes to do, what she sounds like, what she feels like, what her opinions are on things, my intuition came back online, because your intuition really is the voice of your soul. And it's that voice and that like kind of channel that connects you to all of these other things, like your guides and your angels. And so once I kind of got back in touch with the voice of my soul and my soul self, I began to start making different decisions, decisions that were based in what I wanted to do, what I liked, what was going to like make my life better, and not what anybody else was telling me to do. And that ultimately led me, to meeting my partner of like almost 8 years, moving from Los Angeles to New York, even when like that really didn't make any sense to anybody else. Um, Starting this business as a psychic and starting to show up on social media and give readings and be loud about this thing that I want to do. So I would say my intuition has like following that and having that connection, like has drastically changed my life. I think if I hadn't developed that connection, like there's a very good chance I'd still just be in that toxic job, or I would have gone to some other place and it would have been just as bad, and I would have been just as lost and just as unhappy. And I don't think, following my intuition has made everything better or perfect. In fact, it's actually made a lot of things harder. But but I think in a lot of ways it's made me happier, and it makes me feel more on purpose, and I feel like I'm on the journey that I meant to be on and not just standing on the sidelines and taking the easy route. So that has really been like my experience with intuition.
Yeah, amazing. And I feel like our like following our intuition or like that, gut feeling or that inner guidance or that inner knowing like truly leads us to like a life of alignment. And like you said, there were, many things that happened on your journey. There was like, no, redirection, redirection. And I feel like, alignment truly leads us to a life of, fulfillment and where the universe can, I guess, really reward us almost. And let's like dive into intuition a little bit more as well. So, like for those that are listening that are maybe they don't know what intuition is, maybe they've not really heard it. Obviously, we've just spoken about sort of like how intuition has really led your life and how you've used that to help you with, decisions and, really just your life path. But for those that don't know what it is, what is it really, and how can we begin to, I guess, like strengthen our intuition?
Yeah, I love that question. Your intuition really is at the core, like your inner guidance. It's kind of this mechanism that's basically it's like an information delivery system that basically is like connects the universe, God, source, your soul, spirit guides, angels. It connects it to you. It's like an information channel, essentially, where you can receive, downloads and messages from them. And so people like for years and years have used different words for intuition, your gut, your inner knowing. You can kind of call it whatever you want, but like the thing that all of those words and phrases have in common is that it comes from within and it comes from your body. And it's a body-based internal process, right? Your intuition it does not come from the thinking mind. It doesn't come from anything outside of you. So it's a very internal process. And in that internal process, you are receiving communication that's at like a higher level than where we kind of are on a baseline on the physical plane. You're kind of operating in this like alternative playing field where things are vibrating at a different frequency, where it's just like there's only like love and not even positivity, but like joy and bliss and all of these like high level emotions, like your intuition lives there. Like it doesn't live in the physical where we experience, yes, those high things, but also low things like fear and
Fear.
pain and
Yeah.
anger and all of that. And so that's why your mind is very physical based. And so that's why your mind will swing from fear to bliss and like go kind of all over the map. Your intuition is operating at this high level frequency. And so the information that you're getting from your intuition will always be loving, will always be gentle, will always be looking to serve the collective. It will never really be ego based, feeding any fear stories. It will never be judgmental or angry or anything like that. And so intuition is essentially like it's information, but it's also like a channel of communication for these things to like start dropping in.
Welcome back, guys. We just had a Zoom technical difficulty for a moment. Zoom just dropped out, but Caroline was just sort of explaining around, I guess, our intuition and what it really is and how we can really begin to strengthen it. And the way that you had actually explained it, Caroline, was such a like an amazing way of I have actually never heard anyone explain it like that. So it really like put things into perspective. And I'm sure for those listening that like, previously didn't know what intuition was, really just puts that into perspective for them. So thank you for sharing that. And even just like for a moment touching on my experience with intuition when I didn't like before I, sort of knew what intuition even was and like that word being sort of thrown around a lot. Like before I was in my business and when I used to do sort of like PT, I also worked a job at a bank part-time as well. And I specifically remember this time when I had this strong gut feeling like it was like it's just like I just knew, but I didn't know why or how. It's just like I just knew something felt off. And when looking back and reflecting on that now, I'm like, that was my intuition. And it was like I was actually a teller at the time and I was doing a
Mm,
withdrawal for this person that had come in. They were wanting to cash a check. And I had checked like absolutely everything. Like I'd asked them extra security questions, double. I got them to sign 5 times. I asked them extra, like it was just everything. And it's like I didn't need to get manager's approval because I had already like I didn't actually need manager's approval. And
mm,
there was like a line up for the manager, and I was like, yeah, and I checked everything. So I'm like, okay, like I'll do it. But something just felt off. And
yeah.
yeah, so it's like your intuition's like always communicating to you and I guess guiding you in the right direction.
Yeah, totally. What happened with that person at the bank?
Well, so I had given him the money, and he had actually like stolen like a checkbook out of someone's like mailbox and went around to like so many different branches and
Wow.
withdrew money, and he withdrew like over like $50,000 from this guy's bank account when obviously it wasn't his, it was fraud. But he had like literally his driver's license, he had like his signature was the same. I asked him all the security questions. He
Wow.
knew everything off the top of his head. So like in terms of due diligence, I did everything like right. There was nothing that I did wrong. And like
Hmm.
but I did get red gated for it because it was fraud. But like they totally understood and like yeah, so but like reflecting on that, it's like that really was like an eye opener of like, oh my God, like that's like I got to trust my gut feeling like when something like that happens
Totally.
and just knowing like without that logical knowing of like, this isn't right or whatever it might be. So yeah, I feel like that's a real like kind of like extreme example, but like a really good example to use as well. Um,
Yeah.
and so, like, how can someone like, or what are some common ways people actually block their own intuitive guidance without maybe even realizing it?
Yeah, we do it all of the time, and like you said, it's pretty unconscious. Like, why would we not want more information that's gonna lead us in the right direction? I would say the number one thing is like constant input. Your intuition needs space and it needs presence to drop in. Your intuition really only is alive and available when you're solely focused on the present moment and reflecting on your experience at the bank, like your body alerted you like something was wrong and you almost became hyper present, right? And then you had this download drop in that came from beyond you, this knowing that you were like, wait, something's not right here. You had to be fully present. If you had been like listening to music or a podcast or like texting or, you wouldn't have had the knowing, you wouldn't have had the feeling, but your body created a sensation that alerted you like to be fully there in that moment, and it kind of caused probably, I imagine, like a lot of the other stuff on your brain just to kind of clear out naturally. Then the knowing dropped in. And so that is really like the process of getting downloads to our intuition. So knowing that, the things that block us are, yeah, constantly, taking walks and listening to podcasts or music. And, there's a time and a place for those things. But if you are someone who's like, I want to hear my inner voice, then you need to kind of stop like all of the external noise, because the second part of it is like stopping the internal noise, like the mind chatter. So there's like two layers, like external noise, podcast, music, TV, constantly like reading, just like constant input, I guess, and constantly like talking things out, asking for other people's opinions, getting all that external input. And then the second layer is like the internal input, which is like our mind, and not creating spaces and times to turn the mind off or give the mind something else to focus on so the soul and the intuition can speak. That's why like meditations with chanting or guided meditations are so powerful, because the mind is focusing on the chanting, it's focusing on the breath, it's focusing on the guidance, and it's kind of like doing its thing over here so your soul, your guides, whatever, can drop in, and you're beginning to learn what that spaciousness looks and feels like. That's why meditation is so powerful to developing your intuition, because you want to start remembering what it feels like to have that spaciousness and to have that quiet inner monologue. So there's so many things, and I mean like beyond that, alcohol, foods, like it can get really deep. Like, I definitely believe there's a ton of things that consciously or unconsciously have been put in our way to block us from our intuition. Because when we have access to our intuition, we become extremely powerful, we become extremely creative. And so it's definitely like an interesting time that we live in. And it's probably harder than it's ever been to be connected to your intuition. And it takes a lot of like deep intention and willingness to really like make it a practice for yourself. And even I still, life happens and I have days or weeks or months where I'm like realizing, oh, wait, I didn't slow down, or I'm trying to like solve a problem with only my mind. Because we kind of belittle. We're like, yeah, yeah, like the intuition's nice, but like, let me just like think about this a little bit more, and then I'll get to the answer. And you kind of have to train yourself to say, like, okay, even though my mind is telling me this is stupid, even though my mind is telling me that's slowing down and not continuing to ruminate on this thing or talk to every single person about it, like, is that's they, even though my mind thinks though that's the best way, let me just give my soul or my internal dialogue, my soul or my guides or my team like a 5 minutes just to like give their input, and you'll be shocked at how quickly your problem is solved, the clarity comes, the idea drops in. It really is like so instant if we are allow ourselves that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And like our intuition, like we said, like is always guiding us, but it's like, are we actually present enough to be able to listen to it? And it's like that slowness or that stillness or that creating that space to actually allow, the intuition to drop in, all those ideas or those intuitive feelings and, all those sorts of things. And, like you said before as well, it's like anyone can have these gifts. Like, yes, some people maybe are more gifted than other people, but it's like everyone has intuition. It's like, it's something that we like it's a birthright, or we're all, I guess,
Hmm.
born with as such. And we can really use that to tune into our own inner guidance system, so we can, so people can stop looking outside of themselves for answers and go within, and like that's where you truly find the answers. So yeah, definitely a very powerful thing, following our intuition. And even just kind of like, I guess, touching on my journey working alongside you sort of over the last like 9 months in our
Hmm.
one-on-one soul and spirit sessions. I think we've had three over the last
Yeah.
months. Yeah. Um, and there's been like so much, as I said at the beginning of the episode, like so much guidance around, business decisions. And like I said, I and even like listening to my intuition as well. It's like I had this, inner knowing that's like I like for so long I was like I really want to do like my life coaching diploma, and I feel like when we obviously had our first soul and spirit sessions, that was actually one of the questions that I had come to you with in terms of like um like this is something that I really want to do. And it was like a little bit of a stretch, like financially, like it was, a $12,000 investment. And I was like, like, is this a part of my purpose? Like, is this something that I'm meant to do? And I feel like after our, just getting that clarity around that, like it really gave me permission to like silence the fear and do what, my intuition was really sort of leading me to do, which, I'm so grateful because it's led me to, I guess where I am now. And, outside of like business decisions and things like that, there's been, so much guidance, even just like on my own personal healing journey. And even obviously being sort of like a channel to my spirit team to ask, so many questions for guidance on, which again has really allowed so much clarity to flow. And even some decisions, we obviously had a recent Soul and Spirit session as well, which is still unfolding for me, which I cannot wait to share with you all over the coming months. And even I actually had a few people ask me this because I had put something up on my story after our last session around connecting to our dog Diesel. And for those that are listening, if you follow me on socials, you'll probably have seen him over my socials in the past. But we lost him in March this year, and in our last Soul and Spirit session, Caroline had connected to Diesel for us, which was so like, and obviously also connect to like past loved ones on the other side and things like that. Like I feel like it like brings so much healing. It's just, yeah, so beautiful. And like almost like for those people who are, navigating grief from losing a loved one, it just, yeah, feels so like reassuring, freeing, and healing to know that like, they're fine on the other side and just get, deliver those messages.
Thank you so much for saying all of that. I mean, no, you're so kind. And I mean, we've had, yeah, in 3 sessions. It's so funny. I'm like, as you're saying all this, I'm like, yeah, wow, we really covered a lot of stuff. But yeah, they had a lot to say. And I feel like you've always come with really like intentional, pointed questions. And I feel like that makes the reading, it allows us to go really deep. And it is really amazing, the things that they had for you was so much of a valid, it was really just a lot of validation, right, of what you had already felt. And I kind of feel this a lot, and I think that's the underrated thing about psychic readings is people, they think they go to a psychic and they're going to tell them this crazy vision of the future that like they've never seen or felt or thought of. But really what we're doing is we're boosting your own intuition. We're saying like, yeah, your inner voice is guiding you towards this decision. And like me, a stranger who's never met you and doesn't know anything about your life, I'm receiving that same intuition as well, right? I'm receiving the same communication that's being broadcasted by your soul, your guides, your spirit team. I'm receiving that intuition and I'm bolstering yours. And so that's why it's like so many of my readings, it's not like I'm telling you some foreign plot line that you would have never like guessed that would have come out of nowhere. It's really just like, yeah, like you're curious about this. This is the right time to act on it. And in some situations, your intuition's telling you something, and yes, it could be something that you're eventually meant to do, but maybe it's not the right time to act, or there's a few energetic blocks in the way that if you were to act on it, it wouldn't be the most like powerful time. And so we then look at those blocks, we look at those beliefs, we look at the things that kind of are keeping you from accessing that highest timeline, that timeline that you feel in your heart that you are destined for, that you want to have. And then we work through that and we help you access it rather than me telling you something that you don't really know. And I think in the moments of clarity where you're like, I don't know. I think when people are lacking clarity, they do know. It's just there's a lot of fear over it. And there's things they don't want to admit to themselves or they don't want to say out loud, or it's like just underneath that fear. And it's like when I give somebody clarity, they're like, it's not like something they've never thought of before. They've thought of it and the mind thought it was too stupid or too boring or too crazy to really like hone in on and say, this is my answer. similar. And so when you go see a psychic, you have someone who can like hold that little piece of information that your brain casts to the side and say, this is actually important for you to look at. And let's figure out how to make that real or figure out what's in your path so it doesn't feel so silly or scary or impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's almost like holding the vision like for that person as well. And like I know that you really allowed, me to be able to see that vision as well and to really act on, what my intuition was, leading me and guiding me towards with that little bit more sort of like certainty and reassurance as well.
Mm.
Um and even actually a question around this, I'm not so sure if it's something that you can answer or not, but in our last soul session, when we did connect to our Deezy boy, our dog, I know that you had said that he's ready to come back to us when we're ready to get another dog, which like for me, that was like so reassuring of like, like we're gonna, cross paths again at some point. But I can't remember, did you mention that that is common for like pets and things to come back to us? Like, I think, did you say like every 7 to 10 years?
Yeah, yeah, it is extremely common. They're called like divas. And this is something that I learned from one of my mentors. But yeah, when dogs want to come back, they'll often, yeah, reincarnate into another dog or a cat or an animal. Usually they stay within the same family, because, like us, they have souls that are learning lessons, but they're in dog form. And usually, like how it works is it's so crazy, but we really do start as like the wind or a rock or a leaf, and then we kind of like work our way up in consciousness to
Mm.
humans. And then after we're done in our human form, we go into another realm of consciousness, right? And so it's kind of the same for dogs. Like humans have multiple lives, like they have multiple dog lives. And so a lot of times what they'll do is, yeah, they'll come back as to the same family in a different form and kind of continue like learning their lessons in a different body in a different state with like some little different obstacles and stuff. It's very similar to humans, but you'll notice certain movements or expressions or habits that are eerily similar to the dog you had before, like my current dog now. When I was before I got him, I went to one of my mentors and she was doing her pendulum on it and she was like, "Yep, he is your childhood dog." And it's
Oh my God.
crazy. Like there are so many very odd synchronicities. Like there are different breeds, completely different scenarios. Like the dog I had growing up was like this purebred, super expensive, like bougie dog. And then this dog is like a rescue from Texas, but the way they sit with their paws crossed, like the way they get excited about certain things. And I think, some people could say, well, like, yeah, they're dogs, like they do the same similar stuff. But I don't know. It's something that you feel, and it's something that has proven to be extremely true for me and a lot of the people in my life. And it's really just like the most beautiful, wonderful thing. And I feel like that gives me so much peace. And it's given like a lot of the people around me so much peace that like our animals really do come back because they're here for such a short time. Like, why not come back and continue learning with us in a new body? It's a little bit different from our life cycle where like by the time we come back, like we're probably in a new generation, in a new century, in a new era. And we don't really have that same like familiarity of that world to work out our karma in. So it's like really beautiful and safe for that level of consciousness to come back to a family that they know and trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And like so reassuring. And like it makes so much sense because I, hold the belief that, like us as humans reincarnate and, like you said, like the soul lessons and, growing and becoming like coming back in a more expanded form to learn, more lessons to, really grow our soul, I guess. But it makes so much sense that dogs do the same thing. So yeah, that was so reassuring. And for anyone listening to this, I'm sure is like mind blown, like, oh my God, like that makes so much sense. So yeah, thanks for clarifying that. And even just like sort of like moving on to like talking about signs, and sort of just linking it back to that conversation as well. When we had to make the decision to put Diesel down, he was 15, so it was definitely like we knew it was time. And I had actually asked him to show me a sign that you've like, that you've made it over to the other side, and whatever before he had passed. And I had asked it like for him to show me orange roses and like
Mm.
orange roses are not real like common things. Like I don't think I've ever seen orange roses before. Like And yeah, I don't think I ever have, to be honest. So, anyways, and then it was not too long ago, one of my clients who's actually come into one of my group coaching programs put a story up on her social media and it was like orange roses. And I was like, oh my God, like I've never seen orange roses. And then like we started speaking and yeah, so it's like so crazy. And it's like the universe is always listening. And so many people, like, often say they're not sure if, something was a sign or if it was just a coincidence. And what's your, I guess, advice for starting to really recognize and interpret or, I guess, decode those signs from the universe?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much different information out there about signs, but the biggest thing that I always tell people is like, if you think it's a sign, it is. Like, there's really no coincidences. If everything is energy and we're kind of like all participating in this reality and everything is like causing and affecting each other, like, there's nothing is by accident. Everything is intentional, even if it's a subconscious intention. So therefore, there's really no coincidences or accidents, like, and that doesn't mean that there's like fate or destiny, but it means that there are certain happenings that are a cause and effect situation of something that we're asking for or something from the other side. Signs are essentially just like energy, like anything else. And so if you're moving through your life and something causes you to pause or take notice or is out of the ordinary, or it's a pattern that you suddenly realized has become a pattern, that's just something to note because it is a sign. A sign is anything unique and obvious that's trying to get your attention. So I think the place where people get tripped up with signs is that they try to immediately decode what they mean and like figure it out. And I think that's when they can become like, well, like the thing that I looked up on Google, like, isn't the thing that I felt in my body when I saw that. And it's because, yeah, like signs can mean different things to everybody. Like if you looked up the spiritual meaning of orange roses, there would be nothing about your dog crossing over to the other side on the internet. Like
Mm,
that's a completely personal thing to you. And it doesn't mean that some of that stuff isn't accurate. Angel numbers do have some clear resonant themes. However, when a 222 or whatever, I don't really know angel numbers, I don't really pay attention to them anymore, that like means abundance for somebody, another person can see it and they can be like, oh shoot, like that 222 money, I need to check my bank account and they're like an overdraft or something like that. And they need to handle something related to money. So there's a lot of nuance. And I think the biggest thing with the sign is to kind of like notice, try in the moment, clock it and like notice what it is and notice what you're thinking about. Notice what comes up for you in that moment. Do you feel a little anxious? Does your mind go to a certain person or a family member? Or you suddenly like you see that blue jay and you think of your grandfather, right? Like a sign is often followed by an immediate intuitive hit because it's something that gets our attention long enough to put us in the present moment for us to have a download. And we need to catch
mm,
that download rather than putting it into like chat GBT or Google and trying to decipher it that way. Signs can mean a billion trillion different things. They're personal to you. And like, I think signs, people will say like it's kind of like a beginner's way to connect with the universe, but it's actually extremely challenging because you have to trust that hit of what it means for you. And, in the beginning, of course, like look up the angels numbers, get familiar, like that's part of the process. But over time, you'll start to develop your own signs with your guides, your own signs with your loved ones. And that can be a really beautiful way to strengthen your intuition. So I feel like if you're curious about signs at all, just allowing yourself to say, this is a sign, and sitting in that and noticing it, and paying attention to the things that are around it is a really great way to begin having that communication with like the other side.
yeah, and that's like such a good explanation of like signs. And I feel like I like before I dived more into sort of like spirituality and things like that, I feel like I used to be one of those people who like, you'd see a sign, you'd be like, oh my God, like what does this mean? And like Google, like, what does this sign mean? And I actually, that just reminded me, I actually, and where I came, like where I had found you was I was actually listening to, I think it was Samantha Daly's podcast
Mm-hmm.
one time, like ages ago, and you were a guest on it. And I was like, it was, I think it was actually something about signs. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what, because I don't think I usually listen to a podcast to be honest. And that like the title had like caught my eye and I'm like, oh, like I'm going to listen to this. Because at that point, like I feel like there were so many signs. I'm like, what does this mean? And then like I feel like in hindsight now, like reflecting on that, it's like I feel like the universe like led me to you, to, like it's meant to be. Um, but yeah, and I know that we actually both have to actually go because I know you've got to go jump on a client session, and I've got to jump on a Zoom shortly as well. So what we're going to do is we are going to come back and finish this episode for you so that we're not rushing it and we can get through everything that we were going to get through, so we can still talk about, dive further into signs, talk about like soul alignment. And I did actually have a question from one of our listeners. And then we'll talk more about, where the audience can find you and your offers and all those sorts of things.
Amazing. Cool. Well, I can't wait to come back after the break and continue
Yeah.
our combo.
Yeah. We'll be back soon. Hello and welcome back to the Gym and Tony podcast. I'm here with Caroline, and it is actually the day after when we were recording yesterday, as we both had to jump off our obviously recording, and we both had something to be, and we had some technical difficulties, and we were just speaking before it's Mercury retrograde, so it totally makes sense. Um, so let's kick off where we kind of, I guess, left off. So obviously we're talking about signs, and so I guess which I feel like we kind of covered this a little bit, but when the universe like sends us signs, how do we like discern, I guess, what they mean or like what action to take? I know we spoke a little bit yesterday, or before for anyone listening, about how our intuition sort of really links with that. It's like listening to that intuitive hit. Like, is there anything else that you have sort of to say to that or expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, when you see a sign and you clock it as a sign and you want to like, yeah, know what that means, what you want to do next, the sign is really like not the full source of the information. So the way to kind of get that next step, the sign is the thing to wake us up, to say like, hey, there's something I want you to pay attention to. And now it's up to you to go and to create that space to connect with yourself and to kind of create that spaciousness for your intuition that we talked about earlier, to kind of figure out what those next steps are. And so that can look like making time that evening to meditate or do a little bit of breath work or pulling a tarot card for yourself if you want like some more tangible reading. If you want to use a pendulum, you can ask like specific questions about what the sign meant and what area of your life it was connected to. You can get like pretty crazy with the pendulum stuff, but the sign is like the wake up call. And then it's about creating that spaciousness after for your intuition to discern what to do. And to be honest, like that's not the easiest. It's definitely like a practice that comes over time. And I'm sure a lot of people listening will be like, well, I've sat in meditation, I've done this before, and I've never really gotten a clear download. But you definitely have at certain points. And now, when you go in with the clear intention of connecting with your soul or your guides or the loved one that you felt might be related to your sign, you definitely will get some sort of feeling, knowing answer. And that is like the real practice, is like taking whatever you get from that and trusting what is next. And I think we're also afraid of, getting the sign, maybe even like going into that meditative state, getting that information and then being wrong, and like doing the wrong thing. But there really is no like wrong, I guess, which I think our ego would disagree, but all roads really do lead to our highest expression. And no matter what you got in that meditation, no matter what action you decided to take, you're going to end up exactly where you needed to be for your spiritual growth and evolution. Maybe you chose a path that's a little bit harder, a little bit stickier, but you're still getting so much out of that. Or maybe you choose the path that's really easy and abundant, and then that propels you into this next level where there's different types of challenges and different types of obstacles. So it's not really about like being wrong per se. So I kind of wanted to like get, because I could hear like, I've been where all of like where a lot of listeners probably are, just like, what do you mean? Like, it's sit in meditation and ask, but you just have to try and continue to like put the reps in. And another great thing to do is go book a session or go see a psychic. That's something that I do a lot for my clients. They'll ask me about signs or repeating patterns that they just like can't quite figure out or they don't trust themselves to kind of know. And that's something like I happily answer for people. It's like a great question because it means that their intuition's coming online, soul and spirit is trying to get in touch with them. And there's clearly like more lessons beyond that sign or more messages for them within a reading. Getting a sign will often prompt people to book a reading. And that just means like there's a whole stream of things that their guides, their loved ones want to say.
Yeah, that's you really answered that like really, really good. And in terms of like, like when a sign comes up, it's like, that knock on the door and it's like, okay, let's tune inwards to see like what is like the universe, my guides or past loved ones or whatever it might be, trying to communicate to me. And you mentioned sort of that trust as well. And I feel like for those who are maybe new to, like just in general listening to their intuition or meditating and don't really I have never sort of sat in meditation and like asked like or set that intention, that like trust muscle, I feel like it really comes through repetition. It's just like in the gym, it's like the more times you lift a dumbbell and do bicep curls, the stronger that muscle's going to get, the more confident you're going to come with it. So I guess the same idea in terms of that trust muscle in terms of like trusting what comes through. Is there anything, I guess, anything that you want to add to that in terms of like how people could build that trust muscle with their intuition and I guess trusting themselves and not overthinking maybe, the signs or what's coming through as such?
That is one of my favorite topics. It's something that I go into a lot with my clients because you're exactly right. Like it is like going to the gym. Like your intuition is a muscle that needs practice. And that's why a lot of us are extremely intuitive, connected kids. And then society, the world kind of tells us like, oh, you don't really need that part of you. Or if you are connected to that part of you, it makes you weird or like an outcast. So we shut that part of ourselves down and the muscle atrophies. And that is the beautiful thing about like going through a spiritual awakening is that you suddenly reawaken this muscle that you have within you. And so one of my favorite ways to do that is at the top of every month, I create a new note in my phone for that month. And so I'll call it like July downloads or August downloads because the thing with your intuition is it comes in so quick. And if you don't write it down, if you don't catch it, if you don't give the downloads a place to land, they'll come back around like maybe, but a lot of times we are just quick to like dismiss it or forget it or just think of it as like a coincidence. You know what I mean? And the thing with our intuition is, yes, it is this like kind of airy fairy thing, but our ego, our human mind loves proof. So if proof is going to help us have a stronger intuition, then let's give it all of the proof we can. And so what I'll do as I'm going about my day or after my meditation, it's usually the times that I'm like after I'm done working out or meditating or breathing, like these intentional times where I'm creating spaciousness, all of a sudden I just have like ideas, thoughts, like and it can be like write this for an Instagram reel or like go to this store or text this person, like random stuff. And at the end of the day, I don't do it every day, but like once or two times a week, I like scroll through whatever I wrote down and I just begin to look for like the patterns. I also look if there's some sort of like specific action step, like text this person. I put that in my calendar and I try to take that action step if it makes sense. There can be like some wild stuff like buy a house, move to Bali, but that is like, that can be future facing. But odds are there are some like tangible, actionable things you can do. And I would encourage you to like put one or two of those things in the calendar, like make the reel that came from that download, text that person, and then watch what happens. Does that reel all of a sudden like go viral and get a bunch of views? Does someone comment on that reel that you've been wanting to collaborate with and you guys set up a podcast episode? Did the person that you text, they have like a job opportunity? And then create another note in your phone that's just called evidence. So I followed XYZ synchronicity, this is what happened. And allow that note to fill itself up. It will be slow and steady, but over time, you'll really start to be like, wow, like when I did that, it led me here, but then it led me here, and then it led me here. You can kind of start to see the through line behind these things. So that is a great way to do it. I think people think like following your intuition, you need to like start with some crazy stuff. Like you need to like quit your job and break up with your partner and kind of like dramatically change your life in order to be like, I'm following my intuition. I trust myself now, but it really can be like slow and steady. And honestly, like we shouldn't do it in these big moves because it will be so incredibly destabilizing for our nervous system. Even if it is the right decision, even if it is what your gut has been telling you, it's probably going to traumatize you so much that you're not ever going to want to do that again because your brain will say, well, look how unsafe that made me feel before. So we want to do this in like small, steady increments using kind of like low stakes things where you can just say like, oh, I intuitively feel like I want Indian food tonight and go and order that. And like, do you feel good? Do you feel happy? Did something happen while you were there? And so just following these silly, seemingly inconsequential threads, your intuition and the universe and your guides and your soul start to take notice, and more downloads actually start to come through the more you begin to action on stuff.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's like a really good way of like actually keeping a record of like, okay, like what downloads have I had? What are the evidence of when I followed through on it to really give us that, I guess, logical aspect of like, okay, this is why I should listen to them. Like it's hard evidence. And I love the idea of you, in terms of how you mentioned, starting with the small stuff. Like a lot of the time I feel like, and I've been there as well, it's like when want to ask the universe for a sign or you see a sign and it's like something about something like a really big decision or something. It's like, okay, but you haven't actually built the muscle with the small things. So you can't expect to get like, that crystal clear clarity on something that, is is a really big decision when you haven't even built it for the small stuff. So yeah, that's a really good way to I guess really build that trust. And I actually remember you mentioning this to me in one of our soul and spirit sessions. And it's something that I have a note in my phone and I started it, but I haven't come back to it. So this is my reminder to come back to that as well.
Yeah, sometimes I mean everybody falls off. I fall off in
Yeah.
some months like and it's actually interesting. Like you'll notice some months when you're out of alignment, you're like I have no downloads coming through. Like I had 2 months where I was kind of in a funk recently and I was just like I didn't even make a note in my phone because I was like I'm so completely disconnected from my inner voice and intuition. And so it's just funny and it's a great wake-up call to be like, "Oh wow, I haven't felt the urge to write anything or I feel like nothing's coming through." Like what are my habits right now? What are my days looking like? What are my thoughts looking like? And what are the things that I need to implement again to start reopening to those downloads? And so it can be also a really nice way to track like, am I in alignment or am I out of alignment?
Yeah, that's so true. And a really good point in terms of, and I feel like I can really resonate that as well. Like before I hit burnout, about 2 years ago now, I was so disconnected from my intuition. Like I wasn't, prioritizing myself. I wasn't, doing any self-care. I was doing everything for everyone and everything and not looking after myself, basically. And it really just goes to show like your intuition won't come through unless you are creating like that spaciousness or that time for you, that that room for those downloads and that intuition just to and that inner voice, I guess, to speak to you. So yeah, really, really, I guess, important part of it as well. And out of curiosity, have you ever had have you ever personally received a sign from the universe that like completely changed your path? Or like from your
That's
guides or just a sign in general?
That's such an interesting question. Because I don't like work a ton in signs. I don't find them to be like the most reliable, especially when you're in like one of those life-changing spaces, because you so desperately want to see the sign that you want to see. Um, but I will say, like, I feel like signs for me that have changed the course of my life have been things that happen on repeat. So, like, when I got into this, when I started awakening to my psychic gifts, like, so all of a sudden, like this podcast with that psychic coming up, and then that girl posting about her psychic, and all of a sudden, all of the stuff about psychic mediums is in my field, and I almost like couldn't get away from it. Like, that to me is more a sign than the double butterflies or the rainbow or something like that. And like those are not to invalidate those are beautiful signs, and if those work for you. But for me personally, the way I start to actually, the way the universe has learned to get my attention is like things in like multiples in a really short period of time, to the point where I'm like, oh, okay, wow, like something is trying to get my attention. I need to follow this thread. And it doesn't even need to be me like spending money on a course. It's just like the intro call or something like that, or going to a store that offers something similar. Like, so those are the things that really like transform my life. So for sure, the stuff with my psychic mediumship, and then also around like getting my dog and adopting my dog. I feel like there was like last summer, honestly, like around this time, like I really clearly intuitively started to feel like a dog wanted to connect with me and come into my life. And I just felt it so deeply. And then my best friend, who lives in LA, adopted a dog. And my other friend was texting me about like her dog's birthday, or like she like would start DMing me stuff from like different rescues. And again, like rescues would show up in my algorithm. It just was like all very interesting. And like obviously some of those like cues led me to the rescue Instagram page where I got my dog from. And it just was, yeah, this like crazy divine timing where I saw him and I was like, oh, okay, like this is my dog. And I'm trying to think if there was like a moment, but it was just like the momentum of it all, the clear repetition, how things started to like open up, and it was almost how easy it was so clear it was my dog. About like when I was going through this process, there was another dog I had seen on the rescues page, and I was like, this is the dog. Like there's no other dog. It has to be this one. This is the name. And it just like it wasn't going to be easy to get this dog. I had like a bunch of trips coming up. It like really wouldn't have made sense or been fair, and I was like devastated because I was like, this is the dog. Like the dog has been trying to connect with me. This is the one. And I let that opportunity pass. The dog, I think, got adopted by somebody else. And had to just really be in trust, like, okay, when it's my time, when it's my dog, it will be easy. And it was like that weekend I saw him. There was like one or two logistical things I needed to figure out, but I just figured them out. I was like, okay, I figured them out. And then I was the first one in line to get him. There was no like issues or waiting. And he just like truly dropped into my life with so much ease. So, that is like a little like manifestation meets intuition, story.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like, I truly believe that like nothing happens by accident or like coincidence. It's like it happens for a reason. And I love that story. And what's your dog's name, by the way?
My dog's name is Arthur.
Arthur. Oh, so cute. That totally
Yeah.
suits him because I've seen him like yesterday when we were on Zoom. I've seen him like walk through the background of the the video.
Yes.
So cute.
Yeah.
And like talking about signs as well, like something recently that I had actually asked the universe or my guides etc. for a sign to um around a decision. I had an opportunity come up and I was like, I feel like my intuition is saying like yes, 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 yes. But it was like a lot earlier than what I had like expected or planned maybe to like I guess have like this is something that's been on my vision board for a little while. But it wasn't something that I had thought that would happen like this soon. And I had actually asked to see, like, I had like set the intention, like, to the universe, like, show me a sign of a pink flamingo if, this is like opportunity is aligned in like my soul path and like is the right decision for me to make and blah, blah, blah. And it was so funny. It was like 2 days later and I had a dream. And in the dream, it was like, it felt so real. It was so weird. And like everything in the dream literally just felt like it resonated so much with like the opportunity because it was like, me and my partner in the dream were like going to catch a plane somewhere. Like I don't even know where we're going. And we're in such a rush, like to get to the airport, like to get to the plane. Like we hadn't packed our bags and we're packing and everything. And then we got to the airport and were flying with like Pink Flamingo Airlines, and like I don't even think that's a thing. And then we're like going to the airport and like, where is like the like check-in? Like where do we drop our bags off? And it was like pink flamingos were everywhere, and it's like it was. And then I had woke up the next morning, I was like, oh my God, like it's so crazy because it like literally felt like it was so aligned in terms of like it, like the rush to get to the airport. Like it felt like this opportunity had like come so quick, and it was like I've got to make a decision. And I ended up following through with that opportunity, which I will be announcing, but not just yet. But yeah, like in terms of like asking for the universe for a sign, like I feel like the universe is always listening. And when we can set that intention and like ask, like it'll always show up. Like I feel like there's been times in the past where I've, asked for signs of just like little things. And it's shown up like, there's been time I've asked for like a ladybug, and it's like I'll be watching a movie with Jake at night, and it's like there's a scene that's like there's a ladybug on there. I'm like, oh my God. And then like the orange flowers I was saying yesterday, or for those listening earlier with Diesel and other occurrences as well. Like, would there be any like for those listening, like if they were to position themselves like to ask a question to the universe or, God, source, high power, whatever their belief system is for a sign, is like if they wanted like guidance with a decision, or maybe they're feeling stuck with something, or even they're wanting to like communicate with like not communicate, but like get a sign from like a past loved one or something like that. How would you position them to like, is there any right or wrong way, I guess, to ask for a sign?
I mean, there's no wrong way, but there's definitely ways of asking that will get you a more clear or more obvious answer. And I love that you mentioned the whole idea of asking, because I think we forget a lot of the time to ask, to clearly say, like, hey, this is what I'm looking for from you, and this is what I'm wanting to receive. And the more clear and the more intentional we are with our energy, the more the universe can say, oh, okay, I know what she wants. And it's funny because I was having a hard time reflecting on signs for myself. And I was like, oh, yeah, because I never ask. Like,
That's so funny.
I was like, I never really ask. And which I is probably just because I'm connecting in other ways all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But as you were saying that, I was like, oh yeah, like when you ask, like you do receive. It is true. And where our like intention goes, like energy certainly does flow. And I think the common thing and all of the examples that you shared, and this is a really, really key thing, is not attaching a timeline to the sign that you ask for.
Yeah.
Don't ask for a sign when it's a situation, or it can be a situation where you have a week or a day or 48 hours, but don't demand the universe give you something on a timeline. Be extremely open to the timeline it plays out on. And so I always try to recommend people keep their ask like open-ended, and just incredibly, yeah, just like based in your soul versus your ego. So, like the ego says, like, show me that I'm gonna get this job, because the ego is like, I must have the job to be better, loved, happy, peaceful. But like our soul doesn't really need any of that stuff. Like your soul is like, I don't need anything external to feel deep peace, alignment, truth, happiness, all of that. And so your soul would kind of more ask the question, like, is it in my highest good to apply for this program? Is it in my highest good to continue being in relationship with this person? Like, are there more lessons that I need to learn with them? Like, show me a sign, yes or no. And so asking more from this perspective, like, is this for my highest good, the highest good of the collective? Could this bring me to my highest timeline? Will this allow me to be of greater service? And when asking for a loved one to communicate with you, just be really direct. Like say their name. This is the sign I'm thinking of because it kind of reminds me of this, or because it's like, I think you'll appreciate it. Like it's a funny thing. Try to like make it personal to them. And again, it doesn't have to be something you've ever seen or associated with them before, but you're like, oh, maybe they would like that. And go again, use your intuition. and just say like so and so, like I'm just, I want to make sure you're okay, you're doing well on the other side, and if you're ever like, watching over or in my vicinity, I would love to see XYZ thing or hear XYZ song, and just allow it to leave you. The more we need something, the more we're like kind of tracking it and thinking about it and hyperfixating on it. That's when we don't really receive the signs, and that's why timelines can block us, because the more we need something, the more we are blocked in actually getting it, because of what I said before. The soul and the universe is always trying to teach us the lesson that there is nothing that we need that's outside of us. So the second you're suddenly, well, like I need that, like I have to know, I have to have this, it has to turn out this certain way. That's when the universe is like, amazing. What a great opportunity for a lesson, for you to come back to the truth and the remembrance that there is truly nothing external outside of you that can provide you with the emotions and feelings that you're hoping to feel by getting this thing.
Yeah, that's so true. And such a good point with the timeline as well. It's almost like in terms of like, manifestation and like detaching from the outcome of like expecting. Like it's like just, trusting and letting go and just sort of like waiting for that sign, but without the attachment. Because the more, that someone focuses on the lack of the thing or the sign or, the X object or whatever it might be, it's like the more that they're actually, yeah, focusing on the lack of that rather than actually manifesting that. So, yeah, that's a really good point. And as you were saying that, it actually reminded me recently I was looking for a book to read because I feel like I needed a book that was just like resonating with like where I was at. Like I had a book that I was reading, but I got three-quarters of the way through. I'm like, it just feels like it was a really like I'm not a I am a reader, but it was a really big book. And I feel like as I really worked through it, it's like as I got to the end, I'm like, I feel like it actually doesn't feel as aligned right now. So it's like I put that down and I was like, sort of just set the intention of like, a book that is meant for me, like to find me, like something that's going to be aligned for me to read. And just last week, I was on Facebook and I don't know, apparently follow this page, which I didn't even know. It's like this book review, like they put up like reviews of books and like what it's about and the key takeaways from the books and things like that. And I had seen this one. It was like the sign of the book like caught me. And then I read it and I was like, oh my God, like this is the book. Like this is the book I was asking for. So then I got it and I started it just this week and I've already read through it, but I'm like, this book was like written for me. I'm like,
Wow.
yeah, the book's titled Do Less by
Okay.
Kate Norchip. I could be wrong in pronouncing her name, but it's something like that. And it's yeah, it just felt so aligned. I was like, oh my God.
Wow, I love that.
So for anyone listening, if you're wanting to set an intention and ask the universe for a sign, like Caroline and I would love to hear your takeaways. And if you do ask for a sign and it comes through, like send us a DM so we can hear about it as well.
Yes, yes, definitely. I would love to hear.
Yeah, so let's move on to soul alignment and I guess just living in alignment and I guess, trusting soul guidance. So, what does it mean to like truly live in alignment with our soul? Like, what does alignment actually mean?
True alignment, living with your soul. I mean, it's taken me a lot of time, and it's something that I wrestle with all the time. We're here
Will
having a
do.
human experience, of course. But I do think living in soul alignment, what it really means is you are in like energetic congruence with your most natural energetic state. This part of you that is not experiencing like human form, right? They're kind of on this like other plane, like they live within you, within your human body, but it's the part of you that's connected to the universe, to your guides, to that kind of other energetic plane that we were talking about earlier. It's the part of you that has a really clear pathway to intuition, to communicating, to understanding and interpreting signs and stuff like that. And so our soul is us. We have a lot of shared traits and qualities, but your soul is like your energetic essence that kind of goes from body to body, lifetime to lifetime, experiencing new things. Your soul is essentially a student of all of these different forms and forms of consciousness, so that way it can grow and evolve and expand. I feel like our souls only true like goal and outcome is expansion, wisdom, consciousness, and like a really deep desire to like know and understand more. And so that is kind of like what the soul is at the core. And to live in alignment with your soul kind of means you start to embody these elements of what the soul is. So I kind of alluded to earlier, we have these two parts of us. We have the soul self and we have the ego self. And the ego is like our more human thing. And we need the ego. Like our ego is our friend. It keeps us safe. It's essential for so many things, and it's also there for us to learn through and to be a vehicle for our growth and to see the ways that we block ourselves and to see like, oh, the ways we don't really want to be. And we have the soul self, which is this more like ethereal, loving part of us. And the soul always operates from a place of love, peace. It's always kind of thinking more in like the collective sense, like its desire is to be of service. Like there's really no like me in the soul. It's always like a we type energy where the ego is always trying to find external things to fill up its cup, but like the bottom of the cup is not there. So you're always like forever trying to fill it up. The ego makes up a lot of narratives. It's very focused on like me and my path and my journey and how I look and my stuff and all of that. And the soul is obviously on this like kind of higher playing field because it's so much more collective based. And so when you're kind of operating from that place, like you can even hear it in the way I talk about it. Like you are suddenly just more at ease, you're less anxious, you're not ruled by your emotions, you have really clear intuition, and you're doing things that primarily feel really good to you. They feel really good and comfortable in your body. Like the soul really, where the ego kind of takes over the mind, the soul really has dominion over the body. And so when we want to get more soul aligned, the question is like, does this feel good to me? Does this sit well with me? Am I truly like happy with this? Does this bring me joy? I feel like when we get into soul alignment, we're chasing things like joy, curiosity, peace, presence. We're chasing these like feelings and we're accessing them from within, no matter what our circumstances are, where the ego is chasing money, fame, love, safety, all of that stuff. And so that's why your soul aligned choices will look a lot different than your ego based choices. And so in the context of like career, a great question to ask, like, am I in alignment with my soul? Is like, well, if I didn't need to make any money and I already had like billions of dollars and I already did the trips and the shopping and I've already done everything I needed to do and now I'm just like in my house, what would I do every single day? And I can pretty much guarantee you that for most of us, the answer is different than if the question was like, well, I need to make $1 billion. Like, what am I doing? And so that's kind of how you know you're in alignment is when I'm doing this because it's a byproduct of my joy, my curiosity, and in doing so, you actually create a lot more flow, you create a lot more magnetism into your life. You start to have intuitive downloads, you have synchronicities like signs and like certain opportunities happen. And that's kind of like the biggest lie. Like our ego will say like, "Oh, like you're just doing that for fun, but like what, you're not going to post it on Instagram, you're not going to make money from that. Like why would you ever do that?" And the soul says, this is me doing something with no outcome because it brings me joy, actually brings me into a frequency where I connect with so many different levels and layers of abundance and opportunity than my mind could have ever conceived of if I was suddenly making this painting to monetize and sell. So that's a kind of a long-winded response. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And it's like just following that joy. And like I loved the idea as well of like the student, like the idea of like Earth school, like Earth being a school. It's like, we're here to learn lessons and grow and expand. I love that idea. And, a lot of the time I feel like it's so easy to get caught up in life and be like, like it's happening to me, it's not happening for me, like, those challenges and that sort of thing. But it's like actually looking at like, what can I actually learn from this and how can I grow from this? And yeah, I loved that explanation of that alignment piece because it's so true and actually something that I've been looking at like myself as well. And I feel like I truly believe that alignment is not like a destination, like it's a choice, like one moment at a time. And yeah, feel like the universe really rewards you almost when you are, in alignment. And, that question that you asked is a great question. Like for anyone listening, if you, are wanting to like invite more alignment or to get into more alignment in your life, like that is an amazing question to sit with in terms of like, if I obviously using it to whatever context you're, wanting, I guess, alignment with. It's actually a question that I have recently sat with things in my business. It's like if I, wasn't getting paid anything, like what would I really want to do? Like how would I be spending my time? Like what office would I be creating? And it's like I feel like it really brings that clarity. And I feel like alignment is kind of like what you said earlier, but like following that curiosity of like, what lights you up? What do you enjoy? And I feel like it leads us to our highest evolution. And like you said, like our mind can't even fathom like the abundance and the joy and, those sorts of emotions of how we could actually feel if we follow that joy and alignment rather than following and being led by like fear or like those fear-based choices, which as is so much easier said than actually done. uh, um,
Yes, yeah, it can be hard to do, but again, it's part of the muscle. Like soul alignment is a muscle as well. You're breaking through so
mhm.
many years of conditioning of the mind and ego-based decision making, and that's why we aren't always getting it right. That's why we fall into those traps, and all of a sudden we're selling offers that are like, ooh, like this doesn't really feel good anymore, and it's also kind of not really like making me the money that I thought it would. And so that's how we can get into these moments of stuckness. So it definitely is, it happens to everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And like, what are some signs someone might be out of alignment, even if like maybe they're ticking all of the boxes like on paper? Like, what are signs that someone would be out of alignment?
If you're living out of alignment, there's probably like a number of things happening. You are probably feeling resistance in a lot of different areas of your life. Things that once worked now are no longer working. You're kind of waking up and you're feeling like I'm like trying, I'm doing all of the things right, like you said, and I'm not getting the same results. I'm not bringing in the same amount of money. I'm not reaching the same amount of clients. My posts aren't kind of like doing as well as they used to, right? Things are suddenly just, you feel like you're walking through mud. You can also start to feel just like your energy is low. You can start experiencing anxiety, depression, because you're ignoring your internal compass, your intuition, your soul. And so that will often happen. You can be getting sick more often. You can feel like you're getting like in fights with people in your life that are close to you. You're just more irritable and angry. You're feeling really disconnected from like a higher power, from your guides, your angels. You're feeling like you're like alone, like you feel like you're talking but nobody's listening, and you're kind of in this weird void state. And when that happens, it's not like a bad thing. And we are in that state for as long as we need to be until we kind of come to terms with the fact that I can't keep doing the same things and go the places that I want to go, or I can't keep doing the same things expecting different results. And when that happens, it is just what it is. It's a call for realignment. And so that means you need to start thinking and moving and being and acting in different ways. Maybe you need to learn something new. And you kind of need to like overhaul your life. I feel like we all really pride ourselves in being like super consistent and showing up in certain ways or having the same morning routine for like 20 years, but that's not really what our soul is about. Our soul is all about expansion and evolution. And the second, whether or not you're ready to go to the next level, the universe will show you. And that's why sometimes we're almost like allowed to live out of alignment for a little bit, or it's like at that time, it was aligned with the energy of what we wanted and the energy of who we were, our soul was content being. But now we're ready to grow. And that's when you have a lot of those oh shit moments. Like, is this the right job? Is this the right career? Is the way I'm talking about my offers or selling things like the way I actually want to? And you get into these like really deep moments of transition and questioning. And that's like a forever cycle. Like, there's no person who's always in soul alignment and a person who always is not. I mean, I think there's people who can stay stuck there for longer periods of time. And I think a really beautiful indicator of like spiritual growth and mastery is noticing when things are feeling resistant and sticky and actively just changing without resistance, because that kind of means you've let go of the ego enough to say like, don't need I'm not identified with any of that stuff. I could drop everything I do like that tomorrow and be and move into this, and that feels better. That brings me joy. So those are kind of the difference between out of alignment and in alignment.
Yeah, definitely. And that makes so much sense. And like, I feel like sometimes it's like maybe, one door has to close in order for another one to open and like to create that space for alignment. And even there was something else I was going to say off the back of that as well. Um, like sometimes it's like when, like you said, it's the universe like just realigning you. Like sometimes like maybe it's not actually a failure. Maybe that's not actually what's meant for you. Almost, I guess, like sort of circling back to the idea of like when you were in the music industry and it's like you thought you like had everything that you wanted and it was like it didn't feel the way that like you thought it would feel, so it was like it was the way of the universe like realigning you to what was meant for you and like your soul purpose. So yeah, and like for someone who's maybe feeling like disconnected or confused about like maybe their next step, like what would you say to them to like bring them back to clarity or alignment?
For somebody who's feeling confused about their next step and they want to find clarity, definitely the route to go is, yeah, trying to align with your soul as much as possible. So, yeah, asking some of these questions that remove the condition. So, like, yeah, if I didn't need any money, would I make this choice? If I was moving from love and not fear, would I make this choice? It's really about having that self inquiry and trying to get the ego out of the way by asking questions that remove all of the things that the ego thinks it's getting out of this, like in the context of a job, right? Like, if this company wasn't going to pay me a $30,000 salary, like increase or something, would I still take it? Were all of those red flags that I was getting in the interview process, like, would I listen to those if I was just gonna like be getting the same salary? Like, probably yes, and that's like where the money and certain things start to blind us. So ask questions that help remove the condition from the situation. And this is actually kind of like a funny thing you can use AI for, actually, like, help me to remove the conditions from the situations to get questions for self inquiry so I can align with my soul. Like, that is honestly a great prompt because, again, it's hard to do for yourself. Like, yourself is like, well, that $30,000, I could get my nails done every day. I could go on this vacation. Like, all my friends will think I'm so cool. Like, it's really hard to bypass those immediate thoughts and not be like, oh yeah, like that lady really seemed crazy, but like your mind is like, I'll make it work. Whereas your soul is literally screaming at you, like, don't take that job, stay where you are and wait for something better to come along that feels more aligned. Or maybe you need to be in the place that you're at so you burn out and you quit it altogether and you change careers, And again, not to say you'll never get there if the career change is meant for you. Like, sure, take that crazy job with the huge pay raise. Like, you'll burn out really quick and then you'll end up where you're meant to go for sure. But I think the biggest thing with like wanting and finding clarity is to ask questions that remove the condition from the situation so you can say, like, does this feel truly in alignment with the version of me who doesn't need anything external? Um, and I would also, yeah, I would sit with that. And you can also get support. Like, it's really not natural to always have the mirror facing yourself. I think it takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of discipline. And so, whether that's a coach, a therapist, a mentor, a psychic, asking people that you trust for not really their advice so much, but their ability to like ask you maybe some of those questions. Like, how does that make you feel? And that can help like pull stuff out of you. So rather than being like, what do you think about this? Almost going to them and saying, like, hey, can you ask me a few questions about this thing? Like, I'm kind of like in my head with it. And so allowing them to hold up the mirror for you instead of them just giving their advice, I think that's a really beautiful way to go about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved that idea of, like you said, like removing the condition because it's, something that can be really hard to do, especially when there's like emotions and things involved in it. And, using, like you said, AI as like a tool to support you in doing that as well. And something that I feel like I've said it on the podcast before, but it's something that I'm always saying and like telling my clients. It's like like that quote of like our life is only as good as the quality of questions that we ask ourselves. And it's like I was only just saying this to a client on one of our coaching calls last night, and it's like the more that we can self-inquire and learn about ourselves, the more that we can actually use that awareness to be able to learn and evolve and transform whatever it is that we're actually working through. And yeah, I feel like that idea of that, yeah, self-inquiry, asking the questions, because a lot of the time, we don't actually sit there and dedicate that time to be like, okay, like what, and ask ourselves those questions. So, sometimes, like you said, it might take someone like a coach or a psychic or a mentor or, a psychologist or like someone that you trust to be able to prompt you to dig a little bit deeper, to understand that on a deeper level as well. So I love
Hmm.
that. And we had a question from one of our amazing listeners, and they wanted to ask what's in store for the rest of 2025. Is that something that you're happy to answer?
Yeah, I can answer. Let me just like sit for a second and tune in. Hang on. Yeah, so what I get around the rest of 2025, I mean, this has been a massive year of change and change in the way of like shedding, right? Things are kind of like falling apart. Like people are getting laid off, people are breaking up, people are moving back to their parents' house, people are losing certain amounts of money. It's almost like it's this big awakening that we're having collectively that like we're actually kind of way too deep in with the choices that our ego has made. And now the universe is like really.
Hello, guys. We had another technical difficulty. So I'm just piecing this together so that we can continue listening to what's in store for the rest of 2025.
For the rest of 2025, I'm continuing to see like a continuation of this theme of moving from ego-based decisions that were made from like an egoic place into like this more soul-aligned place. I feel like from January till now, we've done a lot of shedding collectively. People have lost jobs, they've kind of transitioned out of relationships, they've lost certain amounts of money. Like, out of all of those, like, out of alignment indicators that we were talking about earlier, like, those were really at the forefront for people for the last 6 months. And I feel like just now we're all starting to kind of like wake up and realize, like, oh, okay, like I can't keep doing the same things or I can't keep applying to the same jobs that I know are going to burn me out. And so, like, and you're starting to begin to see all of that shedding as a blessing. And so, the sooner you do that and you find gratitude and you find a lot of love and peace and acceptance with all of the parts of you that have fallen away so far in 2025, the sooner you kind of get to go to this next level and the sooner you get to start being like in this more playful, joyful state with things. Like you finally get to start being in this place of like um joy and curiosity and new opportunities and people and places are going to start flowing into your life. So I see the second half of 2025 being like an opening. And I don't necessarily see it being a time where things are really landing and solidifying. I see it more as a time for like open experimentation and exploration and you starting to kind of like dabble in certain things and open your awareness and really start to learn like what does alignment look like for me, and that's going to like set the course of like a 5 to 10 year cycle where you really get to start coming into alignment with who you are and who you're meant to be.
Yeah, beautiful. And I feel like that really resonated with like everything that we've spoken about in today's episode as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's always fun.
yeah. And before we sort of wrap up and talk about, your offers and where people can find you, like, do you feel called to share like a channeled message with our listeners today? Like, if there's anything that your guides or even my guides have to say to bring through for the collective?
Sure. Let's see. Hang on.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really like the at the core of it all is like let everything you do be rooted in love for yourself, in love for others, and allow the heart to lead and guide you, especially in the areas where the mind wants to take control. And so, really learning how to feel into things, to allow your emotions to be guideposts and tools rather than something that you're afraid of. It's really this like message of finding a lot of softness and finding, yeah, like finding validity and value in your intuition, in your emotions, in the signs and signals that your body is giving you, because that's going to allow you to live a much more deep and powerful love-based life, make decisions from that place, make connections from that place, grow your business from that place, and then all of these other things get to unfold out of that, and our mind will tell us that like it doesn't really matter, that like how we've been doing things is fine. But if you even just for one day just chose to make all of your decisions and move from this place of just like deep love for yourself and others and gratitude and presence, like they're just saying like just watch how much will open up for you.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful message, and I feel like it will land for so many. So thank you for sharing. And so, where can the listeners like connect with you? Where can they book a session or follow along with your work? Like, is there any specific offers you have at the moment that you'd like to share?
Yeah, right now I am offering my 60-minute signature psychic readings. They're called Soul and Spirit Sessions, which you've experienced.
Yeah.
And you can book a reading with me on my site. It's www.itspeaceinchaos.com. On my site, you can also find I do like a 30-minute reading for returning clients, for people who just want like a quick check-in. But my readings are really where like you get such massive clarity. I channel messages from your guides, your angels, your past loved ones, anyone who really wants to like come and weigh in on the questions and topics that you have. No session is the same, and I use a mix of tarot, pendulum. I'm clairvoyant and clairaudient, as we kind of talked about. So I use my gifts to really guide the session. And I always just try to leave people with really practical tools and next steps and resources. I am really like a no gatekeeping psychic. I'll always kind of tell you like the things I use that I know can make your life better. And I'm also right now test driving a new offer. It's called an intuitive healing session. You can also book that on my site. I am doing just a beta round of sessions right now, as I'm practicing some shamanic healing and distance Reiki and chakra based tarot analysis. I've only done a few readings in beta form, but I'm honestly having so much fun with them, and the results have been truly wild. Like they're incredible for energetic alignment and balancing your chakras. So definitely come visit my website if you want to experience working with me.
Amazing. That sounds so good. I might have to book one in myself.
Yes,
I'll,
yes.
I'll definitely share the links, like all of the links, your website, your social media, which is Peace in Chaos, which I love. Like when I first came across your page, I was like, oh my God, I love that. Like that resonates so much because it's like, it's just life, right?
Yes, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's where
yeah,
I came up with it. Just living
yeah,
my life.
literally. And before we do, I guess, wrap up, is there anything else that you feel called to share?
No, yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you so much for having me. This was such a fabulous conversation, and I hope to get some people in your community in for some readings. I'd love to meet everybody.
Yeah, and thank you so much for your time and, sharing such valuable knowledge and education. And I have no doubt this episode's truly going to land for my listeners and audience. And, if you're listening right now and you enjoyed today's episode, share it to your stories, tag Caroline and myself, and, send it to a friend that you feel needs to hear it. And like I said, I'll put Caroline's links all in the show notes below so you can go follow her on socials, follow along on her journey, see more about her offers. And yeah, so thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for spending the time on Zoom, especially we did it across 2 days.
Yes, it all worked out perfectly. Thank you so,
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you so much. And I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.